Hey everyone, Will Brink here, Brinkzone.com. Possibly an interesting topic today. It may seem like a really sort of old topic, and within nutritional science and stuff it is, but it has been recently getting quite a bit of focus. There's been quite a bit of I don't know. It's not a new topic again that people have gone after. Like bad fashion, bell-bottom jeans, and all that. They come around every decade or few decades or whatever. But I think that in the current, let's say, culture wars, I don't want to get political. I'm going to try to stick to nutrition as it applies to what I'm saying. But in the current climate, with nutrition, of course, a lot of things are being questioned and debated and brought up. Many things that are considered sort of foundational stuff. And I can't go down the whole list, but I think you know what we're talking about, whether it's seed oils, whether it's cholesterol levels and heart disease. And, there's a whole bunch of things, topics that are being questioned and debated and all that. And that's fine. The one I want to talk about today, though, the one that is I have noticed seems to be getting a lot of attention, is the calories in, calories out, for basically weight loss. I mean, again, we can talk about it from a number of different angles, but I'm going to focus mostly on the sort of, I have noticed, on social media where I am, whether it's Facebook, mostly, especially X, but other places where there's a sort of, some people are questioning the whole calories in, calories out model of weight loss, weight gain, that kind of thing. And so I'm going to try my best using some different ways of explaining this to people. It is as simple as it is. It is one of the more poorly understood concepts out there. And you kind of have to look at it again from a mile high view, in a sense. I think especially for people that maybe don't really understand it that well, to sort of take a big step back. That's really what I always try to do. I always really, regardless of the topic, I always try to look at the big picture, the net effect of whatever it is. Again, people have a tendency, it's just a human nature tendency to keep looking at things at smaller and smaller levels to get more and more granular on a topic. Again, which is okay. Sometimes you have to do that to get answers. But what happens at some point, you lose the big picture. You lose an understanding of the bigger net effect of things. And again, that's, to me, where you have to pull back. And so we're going to do that for people. I'm hoping if there's anybody on the fence, somebody that, again, maybe they've seen, people debating, saying that this diet or that diet, somehow proves the calories in, calories out, model is not true or something like that. So I'm going to take it, like I say, we're going to go from not just a mile high, we're going to go from way out there. I have a graphic that I want to talk about, and then I'm going to narrow it down to getting to the main points, so hopefully that people can understand it. Again, I think one of hopefully my strong points has always been, at least what people have usually said to me, when I used to write for all the magazines and stuff, was that I was, good at taking seemingly complicated topics and, again, just distilling them down to what's important and the true net effect of that. So let me bring in this guy, which I put together. As you can see, it's not exactly high tech, but this is how you have to look at things to understand calories in, calories out model as it applies to nutrition again. So, now going way out, there's basically, this is how I see the hierarchy of science or topics as they apply to, again, biology, but you could apply this to a lot of things. But again, we're going to apply this to human biology / nutrition kind of thing as it appeals or applies to this discussion of the calories in, calories out situation. So obviously, at this level, the physics level is the base level of all science, it's not just the base level of all science, it's the base level of reality. It's the base level of us, it's the base level of the planet, it's the base level of the galaxy, it's the base level of the universe. So that's really where everything is. This is where, everything stems from the physics of a thing, right? Next up, you work your way to the chemistry of it. And from chemistry, you look at it from biology and human physiology, and on your way up to nutrition. It all goes from the bottom and works its way in that direction. For example, I'll just give you an example. I think I learned more about the most helpful course I think I ever took in terms of human nutrition, human physiology, was biochem. At the biochem, 2 semesters I took of biochem were the most useful courses I think I've ever taken to really understanding, because you get into pathways and enzymes and all kinds of stuff that really gets it to that granular level where you can understand things, how things work, how hormones work, how calories are used, all that. But the physics, like I say, physics is the ground level topic, and of course maybe that's sort of in a sense why physicists can be known to be kind of they can be kind of an ego on them. They can sort of be, because they kind of view, like I say, physics is the ground level topic of all the topics. It's the everything stems from physics, and so from their perspective, they tend to consider to be sort of arrogant about it. But anyway, so why are we talking about this? So why is physics part of this? All physics is, I shouldn't say all physics. All calories in, calories out is not a diet ideology. It's literally just the energy conservation law applied to human metabolism. It's a basic law of thermodynamics. It is ground level physics stuff. Now, of course, you can look at that particular thermodynamic law and certainly go down a rabbit hole of great complexity if you want. But that's all it is. It is basically just the energy conservation law applied to human metabolism. It's not, like I say, it's not an ideology. It doesn't compete with, or it's not an alternative viewpoint, compared one diet to the other. Everything you are doing down here, or everything that's going on down here, has absolutely is not impacted by what you're doing up here. Any diet you go on, any changes to your nutrition, any changes to anything you do, has no impact on the physics or the basically energy conservation. It is basically energy balance. Again, that's maybe another way to look at it. I like to usually use the term energy in general over calories. Now, all the calorie is just a unit of energy. That's all it is. But when you say calories, in, calories out, that kind of thing, it kind of comes with some baggage for people. I think the whole sort of calorie term. I think for some people there's some resistance when you talk. So saying energy in, energy out, or energy balance type of thing is I think is, and that's really what we're talking about. So if anybody is claiming any diet they're following, any changes, no matter what it is somehow proven that calories in and calories out, or energy in, energy out, whatever is wrong, is somebody you can ignore right off the bat. They are, if they really believe it, they just don't know the topic very well. Or they are scammers, or they are grifters, or they are intellectually dishonest people, whatever levels you want to call it. But if they are truly telling you, or maybe they believe that energy, the basic energy conservation model is somehow disproven by this diet that they're following or recommending, whatever, you're at like the nutrition equivalent of like flat Earth level at that point. Now, I think one of the problems, I do think one of the problems there, why it's becomes somewhat, I don't know if controversial is not the right word, but some, an area that people are sort of pushing against or claiming that, it's not important, the calories are not important or energy is not important, is that in nutritional sciences and it's like it's at the level of like water is wet. Like that's not even debated. It's not something that is considered something really studying now. Of course, we'll get into where things are looked at and stuff. But I think what's happened is that this has become, again, as I was saying earlier, that everything is being questioned and debated, and what that does, and in the nutritional circles, in the nutritional science circles, this is so old and such a sort of just a reality-based area. There's really not any discussion going on there. And so what happens is you get this wedge, of course, where people go in two different directions, where you've got sort of, again, the old school, old school nutritional science and stuff, which, again, from my perspective, there's lots of things that they get wrong. There's lots of things that I don't agree with. 30 years of being at this and writing articles in the print-based publications, where I would call a lot of, old dogmatic nutritional rules or established, quote-unquote established stuff into question. I did it many times, and I would get, some pushback on it too. So it's not just a complete universal acceptance of, old school nutritional dogma, because a lot of it is wrong. In fact, I was in a program for a short-lived time, nutrition program way back in the day. We're talking 80s here, which I quit. I just thought it was. I was taking I took a good number of nutrition courses, and I got kind of into a disagreement with one of the professors, and they gave me a bad grade on a paper, which really pissed me off. And I went to the head of the department, and they sided with the teacher, and that was it. I said, I'm out of here. You people don't know what you're talking about. And this was, like I say, this was a long time ago. So it's not that I am universally accepting of nutritional dogma, some of which, like I say, I don't agree with. But in this particular case, this is, like I say, this is just basic, like I say, thermodynamics, of which energy, the basic conservation of energy law just generally states that energy cannot be created nor destroyed. That's it. I mean, again, obviously there's a lot of complexity in there if one wants to go down there, but that is really all that's being said. The basic energy balance, right? And we will talk about that, what that looks like. I'll give you just the general overview. And now real world examples of it. Now this isn't just like highfalutin stuff that doesn't have any applications or real world applications. One of my some of my favorite examples are there was a school teacher who needed to lose some weight. He was a science teacher. I think he was a high school science teacher. I'll actually link some of this below so you can go check it out. But anyway, he wanted to prove to his students, kind of, put his money where his mouth is, about this, basic law of, energy in, energy out, calories type of thing. Well, all he did was he ate at McDonald's. He ate at McDonald's every day. He ate, because a lot of times people, again, will look for what I like to call the 3 M's, which is magical macro manipulations. The magic diet, somehow, gets around the whole energy in, energy out, or, depends on the quality of the calories you eat. Or, there's a lot of attempted workarounds to this reality, which is not to say there aren't some ways to optimize it. Again, we'll talk about that in a minute. But anyway, so this high school science teacher basically ate at McDonald's every day. So he ate basically what would amount to junk food, but he had calculated his calories and just, ate the amount that put him in a calorie deficit, and he lost a ton of weight, like 60 pounds, something like that. Another guy did the same thing. He lost even more. I think he lost like 100 pounds, eating at McDonald's every day. But again, just, basically serving size, ate less calories, and he showed basically, again, in a real world way, eating what we would consider junk calories, really, McDonald's, and it worked. Now, so what is the what does the energy balance equation or sort of breakdown look like? Let's talk about that. So what you have is what is TDEE, which is total daily energy expenditure, right? That is the calories out part, right? Calories in is obvious. It's basically what you eat, open your mouth and put stuff in there, and that's the in part. So that one is kind of simple. Calories out can be somewhat complicated. I mean, there are formulas, there are calculations, there's all kinds of things that you can go look up again if you have not. I'm gonna give the sort of broad strokes on this as far as how that looks. I'll tell you that back in the day, again, pre-internet, really pre-computers, or at least pre-software. When I used to work with some pro athletes or pro bodybuilders and amateurs, and had clients and all that, I had a private training business while I was going to school. I would have to sit down and with a book, a printed book that had the calories of all these foods, a calculator and a pencil and a pad, and I'd have to sit there and figure out exactly the calories and macro breakdowns and what they would eat and all that to the gram, and it was a real pain in the ass. It used to take hours, and then I don't know, mid-90s, something like that, in that ballpark. There was some software that came out. I think it was called, I want to say, Diet Balancer. That's what comes to my head. Anyway, man, that was like the greatest thing. You could actually go type in food and put in the amount, the weight, or the how many ounces or whatever, and it would give you the calories. It would give you a breakdown of macros and all that. Boy, that was great. But again, online and hold on. This is some Alpha Joe Advanced Protein here. I'm drinking. But now, of course, online you've got calculators and stuff that can really give you very specific recommendations and breakdowns and graphs and all that. It give you percents of vitamins, minerals, all that. So again, I have to say, in my day, it was a lot more work, and today it's really, really easy to figure that out. But anyway, so TDEE, which is the out part of the equation of the energy. Energy in, food, energy out, is a number of things. So what makes up TDEE? BMR, so basically BMR is your basal metabolic rate, which is basically all the energy you burn sitting still, heart, lungs, cells, breathing. Obviously there's a number of variables that control that, muscle mass, and a number of things, and that makes up the lion's share of your total calories, your TDEE, which is around 60-70%. Next is your TEF, which is thermic effective food, which is the energy it takes to digest and absorb and metabolize and all that food, which makes up around 5 to 10%. NEAT, which is non-exercise activity thermogenesis, that was kind of an interesting one. I have an art. I wish somebody would stop pinging me on my phone when I'm trying to make videos. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but my phone is pinging at me because somebody's texting me. I should have turned it off, but I don't want to redo this video. So, NEAT is actually kind of an interesting topic. I'll post, I'll link an article underneath about that one. But NEAT actually they've learned that NEAT actually can use more calories than they realize, like in the 10 to 20% per day. And that is literally just, again, fidgeting, walking, chores, that kind of thing. There's even some interesting studies they find that the amount of NEAT, the amount of like just moving around and standing up and fidgeting and stuff that people do who tend to gain weight versus people who lose weight or keep the weight off actually just move more. They even like just they're even gestures, just fidgeting and moving themselves around is different than other people. So NEAT is actually one of the sort of interesting ones and does use more calories than you might think. The next one is EAT, which is exercise activity thermogenesis, which is like the structured exercise that working out, running, lifting weights, whatever, and that's around 5 to 15%, give or take. And that's a large sort of easy, quick, overall, out part of the TDEE balance, basically in and out. There's, again, each one of those has data you can look at. There's calculations. All of these. I'm just giving this sort of broad overview because I don't want to have this video go on and on and on. So from a dietary point of view, again, if somebody, if you're on a whatever keto, vegan, Mediterranean, whatever type of thing, you're not impacting. Nothing you're doing is impacting the basic energy balance equation. Okay, everything you're doing remains within, like I say, at the bottom level, the physics level, because that's basically all you're doing. Nothing is changing in there. Now, I think where we can come back around, okay, so you might have let's say the really, really old school dogmatic types. There's less of them now than there used to be, and we'll get to that. But anyway, that will say, calories a calorie, nothing matters as far as just other than what you eat, so it doesn't matter. As long as you're in a calorie deficit, that's all that matters. To let's say the other extreme side, which is those are literally saying that calories don't matter at all. Like I said, to me, that's at that point you're at flat Earth level, the nutrition equivalent of like flat Earth level. In the middle of that, I think what we do have is a group of people that might say something to the effect of course, the energy balance equation matters, but it's overly simplistic. It's used overly overly simple to come up with diets, and that I think is where you can have an actual discussion. That is the area, for the people that sort of fall in the middle, that will say, yes, of course the energy balance matters. That is, ultimately, however you do it, you still have to obviously use more energy than you take in, metabolically speaking, whether that's via less calories, whether that's upping your exercise, whatever type of thing. But it's overly simplistic, and doing this carnivore diet, this other thing, whatever is more effective. Okay, that's a conversation worth having, whether I may or may not agree with where they're going with it or what they recommend per se. But that is the area where you can have a valid discussion. But like I say, I'm hoping, getting across to you that if anybody is claiming that calories don't matter at all, and that some diet that they've been using or don't use somehow gets around it or proves it's not true or whatever, then I just say avoid that. Avoid that person. Like I say, they either really don't understand the topic, or they are actively, trying to BS you on something. So I think now let's get to some areas of like dietary manipulation, macro kind of thing. One of the areas, like for example, as far as old school stuff. Now, again, a long time ago, 30 years or so ago, I wrote an article in, I think it was Muscle Mag, or it might have been Muscle Media. It was one of the big, like I say, I wrote for like all of the print magazines back in the day. But anyway, the science of nutrition, at that time was not very sophisticated, which is not that long ago, but it really wasn't. And I will tell you that the dogma of a calorie is a calorie was absolutely entrenched at that time. And I wrote an article saying that higher protein diets were superior ultimately for fat loss. Notice I didn't say weight loss, but fat loss. They were superior for obviously maintaining muscle mass. They were superior in a lot of ways. One of those being the thermic effect. For example, a way that you can impact that TDEE part of the equation. Protein it's about a 20-30% thermic effect compared to carbs and fat. Now, what does that mean? It means that basically about 30% of the protein calories are lost as heat. Now, again, you haven't changed the equation. You're just approaching that energy out equation from a slightly different angle. But you're not nullifying or somehow magically getting around this equation. Now, at the time, I got a lot of pushback on it. I had some nutritionists. I got some angry letters from some nutritionists telling me that I was wrong. That again, a calorie is a calorie. And back then, especially back then, that I was going to harm people. That their kidneys were going to be damaged by the extra protein that I was recommending, which of course we know is wrong, and so on and so forth. So it's not that a calorie is a calorie. I completely agree with somebody that would say that, 2,000 calories from lard is not going to have the same metabolic effects as 2,000 calories from pasta, or 2,000 calories from whey protein, or 2,000 calories from hamburger meat or something. They're not going to be the same. There are going to be different biological, physiological, metabolic effects. But again, remember that. But they don't change the physics. Nothing about the physics is being changed. That equation is still there. It may change again how you absorb it. It may change thermic effects. It may change any number of things. Of course, you're going to have hormonal effects. You are going to upregulate or downregulate various pathways. What are we talking about? Things like insulin sensitivity. What else? AMPK or mTOR. You're going to have hormones like insulin and leptin and thyroid and cortisol, going up and down and all that. And all that does have an impact on things like TDEE. And hormones, to give you an example, on the going inside, if you look at the GLP-1 inhibitor drugs, they're going to actually affect energy in versus energy out, because they are, of course, going to reduce your appetite. Now, there are some metabolic effects, but I would say that the main effect of these GLP-1 inhibitors is they just suppress appetite. So they are going to change the energy equation from the inside versus the out. So I'm not, again, claiming that all calories are created equal. But again, you are not getting calories in, calories out, energy in, energy out, whatever is not going anywhere. It is unrelated to diet ideology, really, in any real sense. And like I say, anybody who says otherwise is not very well informed, or they are actively trying to make a name for themselves or something. They've gotten around it because they haven't. So I think that about covers. If you got questions, comments, leave them below and sub up, of course, and I will try to answer the comments and the questions. Hopefully I approach this from a way that people can sort of appreciate in the sort of larger scale, in the grand scheme of things. Let me see, get myself out of here. Hold on. Okay. And hopefully that, approaching it from the sort of the pyramid, from the pyramidal sort of concept to sort of the basic stuff, and working your way up to understand that the nutrition you're choosing is not, like I say, it's not changing your physiology, it's not changing your biology, and it certainly isn't going to change the physics of it. Now, to leave you with a final sort of thought, again, obviously, if you have physics or you have that kind of thing, obviously it helps to understand, to have a sort of a, let's say, a more formal understanding of thermodynamics and all, but you don't have to. I mean, the energy, again, you cannot create nor destroy energy. It just changes the form, right? Whether it's loss as heat, whether it's, converts to some tissue, whether it's excreted, whatever, it's got to go somewhere. I don't think that's a difficult concept for people to understand. If not, you've got to account for it. It's got to go somewhere. Now, I do think there are maybe even some processes and some pathways that maybe we have yet to fully discover, as far as where every single bit of energy that we eat and goes to. I actually am. I have my personal position, for example, on protein, is that I think that there's still some mechanisms by which protein does not increase fat production that we fully understand, which is to say that, it seems to be virtually impossible to get fat eating excess protein, and I don't think that exactly why that is completely. I personally think we may find out some other pathways and stuff by what that is the case. But be that as it may, you know, the basic energy balance, regardless of what you're eating, you're still going to have to be in a calorie deficit, an energy deficit, to lose that fat. And again, weight, fat. Notice I'm concentrating on fat because again, weight and fat are not the same thing, right? Again, we're back to the GLP-1 inhibitors. One of the drawbacks of the drug, or at least the fears, is that people lose a lot of muscle with it too. Now, whether that's an actual effect of the drug itself or just the fact that people lose a lot of weight really quickly, which we know is catabolic to muscle, they're usually not exercising, they may not have adequate protein and so forth, is unclear. I tend to think it's the latter one. I don't think the drug itself causes the muscle loss, but again, we have to look into that. So, final point being, you've got to account for that energy going somewhere. You know, it doesn't magically disappear, no matter what people think, right? It's not magic. It's not a higher power like God, you know, erasing it, the calories. You know, unless somebody comes up with a quantum entanglement diet, which I bet they will. Someday someone will come up with a quantum entanglement diet where they will claim that like half the calories you eat because of the special diet are quantum entangled and disappearing into an alternative universe or something, and so that's how it ends up not making you fat. Someone will do it, honest to God. But no matter what, basic where we're at, you do have to account for where that energy is going. It's coming in your mouth. It's got to go out. It's got to go out somewhere through TDEE and other possible ways. Like, you know, you add fiber. If you add fiber, it tends to move food through faster, and that's one way through actually reducing absorption stuff of calories. So, okay, I think that does it for me. Hopefully, this clarifies this, and you understand that not to let people confuse you, thinking that the calories in, calories out is somehow, you know, an alternative viewpoint or the wrong viewpoint compared to the diet they're recommending. See you all on the brink.